It was a cold and windy morning when I first stepped into the ballet studio. I was nervous, but there was a fire inside me that I hadn't felt in years. My name is Zane, and I was about to face the hardest challenge of my life, learning to embrace who I truly was, despite all the voices telling me I wasn't good enough. I'd always loved ballet. Ever since I was little, I would watch the graceful dancers and think, why can't I do that? But the world had different plans for me. I was supposed to be rough and tough, playing football, running with the boys, but I wasn't them. I wasn't the kind of guy who fit into those stereotypes. And so, I hid my love for ballet, kept it a secret, until now. I took a deep breath and stepped inside, trying to steady my nerves. The door closed behind me with a soft click, and the room was bathed in the smell of fresh wood and the faint scent of perfume. I looked around, spotting a few familiar faces, but none of them were looking at me. I wasn't sure if that was a good or bad sign, but when I saw her, my heart sank. Claire. She had always been one of the popular girls at school, and I could already feel her judgment. "Hey, Zane," she said with a raised eyebrow, as if my presence here was some kind of joke. "Didn't know we were having a new boy in ballet today." I forced a smile, trying not to let her words get to me. It's just one class, I thought. One class, and I'll prove them all wrong. But it wasn't that easy. When the instructor, Miss Evans, called us to start, I felt every eye in the room on me. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were all waiting for me to fail, to fall flat on my face. Ballet wasn't for guys like me, and deep down I knew that. The first few moves were shaky. I could feel the sweat on my palms as I tried to keep up with the others. My body wasn't used to this. I wasn't as flexible, as graceful as the others. I was just me. A guy in a ballet class trying to dance his way into something that felt like freedom. But it didn't feel that way. It felt wrong. It felt like I didn't belong. As we moved through the steps, I could hear Claire's laughter in the background, the whispers from the other girls. "Ballet's not for guys," she said. "You're just going to embarrass yourself." It felt like their voices were getting louder, drowning out everything else. My legs were shaky, my arms stiff. I wasn't getting it. "Zane, your posture," Miss Evans called, her voice firm but encouraging. "You're not supporting your back properly. You need to center yourself." I nodded, trying to correct myself, but no matter what I did, it felt like I was always 2 steps behind. My body wasn't moving the way I wanted it to. It wasn't like the videos I watched online. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't easy. I could feel the pressure building up inside me, pushing against my chest, making it hard to breathe. What if I wasn't good enough? What if they were right? Maybe I didn't belong here. Maybe I was just a joke. Maybe I should walk out before it got worse. "Zane, you're doing great," Miss Evans said, noticing my hesitation. She came up to me, adjusting my arms and posture. "It takes time. Don't rush it." Her words were a comfort, but they didn't change the sinking feeling in my stomach. Ballet was hard. It wasn't just a hobby. It was a world I had to fight to be a part of. And at that moment, I wasn't sure I was strong enough to keep fighting. After class ended, I hurried out of the studio, my head low, my heart heavy. I didn't want to go home. I didn't want to face my mom, who had been so excited when I told her I was starting ballet. She believed in me. She thought I could do it. But right then, all I wanted to do was disappear. As I walked out into the parking lot, I saw her again. Claire. She was sitting in her car laughing with her friends, her eyes catching mine for a brief second. Her lips curled into a smirk. "You're really doing this, huh?" she called out, her voice laced with mockery. "Going to be a ballerina? Good luck with that." I didn't answer. I couldn't. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't even sure what I was doing anymore. The weight of their judgment pressed on me, suffocating me. It wasn't just ballet. It was my whole life. I wasn't supposed to be this way. I wasn't supposed to be me. But who else was I supposed to be? I got in my car and started the engine, not knowing where to go, just wanting to get away. The road ahead was empty, just like I felt inside. But maybe that was the point. Maybe I wasn't supposed to have it all figured out. Maybe I was just supposed to keep going, one step at a time, until I found where I belonged. The next morning, I woke up with the same heavy feeling in my chest. But something was different. I had a choice. I could keep going or I could give up. I could let the world decide who I was, or I could decide for myself. I decided I was going back to ballet. I woke up the next morning determined. The feeling of hesitation that I had the day before was still there, lurking in the back of my mind, but it was quieter now. I couldn't let Claire's words get to me. I couldn't let them dictate my life anymore. Ballet was a part of me, and if I was going to get anywhere, I had to fight for it. The morning was cold, and my mom was already making breakfast. She looked at me when I walked into the kitchen, her eyes bright. She could tell I was different today. There was something about the way I walked, the way I held myself. "How was class yesterday?" she asked, flipping pancakes on the griddle. I hesitated for a moment, then sat down at the table. "It was tough, really tough," I said, not looking her in the eye. "But I'm going back." She smiled, but there was concern in her eyes. "You sure? It's not easy, Zane. Ballet's hard. You don't have to keep doing it if it's not something you want." I looked up at her, feeling the weight of her words. She meant well, but she didn't understand. It wasn't just about ballet. It was about me finding my place in this world. I needed to prove to myself that I could do something, that I could be someone, no matter what anyone said. "I know, Mom, but I want to do this," I said firmly. "I need to." Her smile softened, and she nodded, setting the pancakes down in front of me. "Then you'll have my full support." The next class was even harder than the first. My muscles ached from the night before, my mind was full of doubts, and the second I walked into the studio, I could feel all the eyes on me. Claire was there again, whispering with her friends, her gaze fixed on me as if waiting for me to fail. I pushed through it. I had to. Miss Evans, as always, was kind but firm. She pushed me further than I thought I could go, correcting my posture and my form. Every step felt like an impossible climb. I had to focus, not on the stairs or the whispers, but on myself. But as the class went on, I realized something. Every time I got the move right, even just a little bit, it felt like a victory. It wasn't perfect, but I wasn't trying to be perfect. I was trying to be real. I wasn't here to impress anyone. I was here for me. By the end of the class, I was exhausted, sweaty, and sore, but I was proud of myself. I had taken another step forward. And when I saw Claire looking at me, the mocking smile from before now replaced with something else, something more like uncertainty, I realized something else too. She wasn't so sure anymore. The following weeks were a blur of practice, effort, and improvement. I was learning more about ballet than I had ever thought possible. But more than that, I was learning about myself. I was learning that I didn't need anyone's approval. Not Claire's, not anyone's. All I needed was to believe in myself. As the audition day drew closer, I started to get nervous again. I hadn't made up my mind about it until one afternoon when I was talking to my mom. She could tell something was bothering me. "Zane, what's going on?" she asked, sitting down next to me. "You've been quieter than usual." I swallowed hard. "I don't know if I'm ready. What if I don't make the team?" She placed her hand on mine, a warm and comforting gesture. "Zane, listen to me. Ballet isn't about making the team. It's about you. It's about doing what you love, no matter what anyone else thinks. It's about being true to yourself. Whether you make the team or not, you've already won by staying true to who you are." Her words sank in slowly. I didn't need to be perfect. I didn't need to win. I needed to be myself. And if I could do that, then I had already achieved something no one could take away. The day of the audition came and my stomach was in knots. I tried to tell myself that it didn't matter, but deep down I was terrified. What if I failed? What if I wasn't good enough? When I stepped into the studio, I saw the usual faces. Claire, of course, with her smug look, and the other girls, all dressed in their pristine ballet attire. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I had come this far. I wasn't going to stop now. Miss Evans stood at the front, watching us all closely. She looked at me, and I could see the encouragement in her eyes. "Let's get started," she said. "Give it your best shot." I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew I was going to give it everything I had. The audition was tough. It was the hardest thing I had ever done. But I pushed through, moving with more confidence than I thought I had. My legs burned, my body ached, but I didn't stop, not for a second. When it was all over, I was spent. I had given it everything I had, and now it was out of my hands. I waited in silence, staring at the floor, not daring to look up. Miss Evans finally spoke. "You all did well. I'll have the final decision soon. But Zane," she paused, looking directly at me, "you've come a long way. No matter what the results are, I'm proud of your effort." I felt a lump in my throat. I wasn't sure what the result would be, but in that moment, I realized something important. Ballet had taught me more than just how to dance. It had taught me that no matter what the world thinks of me, I am enough, just the way I am. As I left the studio that day, the only thing that mattered to me was that I had stayed true to myself, no matter what happened next. I walked out of the studio, the sound of the doors closing softly behind me. The usual buzz of the outside world felt different now, quieter somehow, as if I had just unlocked a door to a new part of myself. I couldn't help but smile, despite the weight of the uncertainty still hanging in the air. I knew I had given it everything I had. Every step, every leap, every correction had been a step toward finding who I really was. Ballet, the art I'd once been afraid to embrace fully, had become my refuge. It wasn't about perfection anymore. It wasn't about fitting into someone else's idea of who I should be. It was about being proud of the journey I'd taken, of who I was becoming, piece by piece. As I walked down the street, I noticed the world around me seemed brighter. The sky was clearer. People passed by, unaware of the small revolution happening inside me. But I felt it. I felt stronger, more confident. The doubts that used to creep into my mind, those nagging fears that maybe I wasn't good enough, weren't there anymore. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need anyone's approval, not even my own sometimes. I was enough. My phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me from my thoughts. I checked it quickly. It was a text from my mom. "How did it go today, Zane? I'm so proud of you no matter what. You've worked so hard." I smiled at her message. She was always there, always encouraging me to follow my heart, no matter how difficult it was. I typed back quickly. "It was good. I'm proud of myself too." As I hit send, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I was walking my path, and for the first time I wasn't worried about where it would take me. I had no idea what the results of the auditions would be, but I knew that ballet and my place in it had already changed me in ways I couldn't quite explain yet. It had made me believe in myself, and that was enough. Later that night, I sat with my family at the dinner table, the usual chatter filling the room, but my mind kept drifting back to the studio, to Miss Evans' words. "No matter what the results are, I'm proud of your effort." Her words echoed in my mind. Was I proud of myself? Had I really given it my all? I thought back to every long night of practice, every bruise, every tear, every moment of doubt. I had given more than I ever thought I could. Just as I finished that thought, the phone rang. My heart skipped a beat. I looked at the screen. It was Miss Evans. I hesitated for a moment before picking up. "Hello?" "Zane, it's Miss Evans," she said, her voice warm but firm. "I wanted to let you know that you've made the team." A wave of relief washed over me. My knees went weak and I had to steady myself against the table. I hadn't realized how much I had been holding my breath until that moment. "Really?" I asked, my voice cracking with emotion. "Really," she replied, a smile in her voice. "You've come so far, and I believe you'll be an asset to the team. I'm proud of you, Zane. You've earned it." I could barely speak. I felt a tear slip down my cheek, not from sadness, but from gratitude. Gratitude for everything ballet had taught me, for the strength I had found within myself, and for the belief that I was worthy of everything I had worked for. "Thank you," I whispered. I hung up the phone, a wide grin spreading across my face. For the first time in my life, I didn't need anyone to tell me I was enough. I knew it, and that was the most powerful feeling in the world. I looked around at my family, who were all watching me, a mixture of pride and joy on their faces. "Zane, that's amazing," my dad exclaimed, clapping me on the back. "We knew you could do it." "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart," my mom added, pulling me into a tight hug. "Thanks, Mom, Dad," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I couldn't have done it without you." I looked at my little brother, who was grinning ear to ear. "You're going to be the best dancer ever," he said, his eyes full of admiration. I laughed, ruffling his hair. "Maybe one day, but for now I just want to enjoy this moment." And I did. I enjoyed every second of it. The relief, the joy, the sense of accomplishment. I knew the journey wouldn't be easy. There would still be challenges ahead, but I was ready. Ballet had taught me that I was strong enough to face whatever came my way, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I truly belonged. I wasn't just a dancer anymore, I was Zane, and that was enough. As the days passed, my world felt different. The initial excitement of making the team had settled into something deeper, something more permanent. Every practice, every movement, every pirouette felt like an affirmation of my journey. The doubts that had once plagued me, whether I was truly good enough, whether I belonged in a world that didn't always seem to accept me, were gone. I had proven to myself that I could overcome obstacles, that I could fight for what I loved, and that being true to myself was more important than anything else. The support from my family had been unwavering. My parents, once hesitant about my choice of ballet, had come to see how much it meant to me. They'd been there at every recital, applauding my efforts, showing up in ways they hadn't before. Even my brother, who had once teased me about my love for ballet, was now my biggest cheerleader. But most importantly, I had learned something that I would carry with me for the rest of my life. Who I am is enough. Ballet wasn't just about the graceful movements or the applause, it was about embracing my authentic self and refusing to let anyone or anything make me feel small. I understood now that society's standards didn't define my worth. My worth was determined by how I saw myself and how much I was willing to fight for what I loved. As I walked into my first performance with the team, I felt the nerves, but they were no longer the overwhelming fear of not being enough. They were the kind of nerves you feel before doing something you know you love, something that fills you with purpose. The spotlight didn't matter as much as the joy of dancing alongside others who had been through their own struggles, their own battles for acceptance. The performance was a success, but it wasn't the standing ovation that mattered most to me. It was the fact that I had stepped on stage as myself, with no pretensions, no apologies. I wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone anymore, I was simply living my truth. And that truth was enough. As the applause echoed in the theater, I found my family in the audience, smiling and clapping, my brother jumping up and down, my mom wiping away a tear. I felt a quiet sense of pride wash over me. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had led me here, and that was all that mattered. Years later, I would look back at that moment and realize it was the turning point in my life, the moment I truly became free. Free from the judgment of others, free from the limitations that society often placed on people like me. I had taken control of my narrative, and that made all the difference. The world may have tried to tell me who I should be, but I knew better now. The world needed more people who were willing to stand up, to be themselves, unapologetically and without fear. It needed more people who understood that true strength lies not in conforming, but in embracing one's unique identity. My story is a reminder to us all. No matter what the world may say, you are enough. You are worthy, just as you are. And it's never too late to embrace your true self, to fight for what you love, and to let go of the expectations that hold you back. So, to anyone reading this, remember that you are enough. Keep pushing forward, stay true to yourself, and never let anyone tell you that you can't be who you are meant to be. The world needs more of that kind of courage. What do you think? Have you ever had to fight for your place in the world? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Let's support one another in embracing who we are.